Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Online in Germany. We're delighted that you could join us today. We're going to talk about German websites, German online marketing, why we should bother having German websites and online marketing, and what they can bring to you as exporters that are targeting the German markets. And we're delighted that you could join us today. We know that you're all like webinared out. Certainly there's been we're all desperate to get back, and it looks like, sun is starting to shine. Most people are starting getting vaccinated. That's a good thing. So without further ado, perhaps just while the last of you are logging on, let me quickly do some introductions. So I'm delighted today to be joined by Joelle Lazzarotto, our Senior Online Marketing Manager. Joelle is a font of knowledge on online marketing and has a lot of experience on the German market in particular, as you'll find out when she talks about different strategies and different platforms to be used and how the German buyer persona reacts and how different that can be. And my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online, so I'm really delighted to be here today and excited to share some of our experiences of websites, online marketing in Germany with you. A quick word also about us as a company. IBT Online, IBT actually stands for International Business and Technologies. And we are 100% focused on online tools, delivering online tools to our clients. That's websites, online marketing, so that they can reach global markets, so they can go international. So we're focused particularly on exporters for online tools, and particularly also really, the mid-cap world, who very often say, we need some extra expertise, and we're very much focused on that. We've been around for a long time, since 2002. We're a US company. We have offices elsewhere as well, though. I'm actually sitting in Europe, as is Joelle. And we are very proud that we've won the President's E Award for export services and contributions to the US economy and US exports. That was very, very nice. But I also wanted to highlight another thing, which is our online global programs. And this is something that we'll talk a little bit about in the webinar as well. So we are incredibly proud of the fact that we've been able to roll out these online global programs for several US states. And there's an image on the left of this slide that shows you the states in yellow where we have online global programs in place. And these are really about, dedicated programs to help exporters get websites, online marketing to reach global markets. And I've on the right-hand side is a whole list of the main drivers and the motivators of why companies do these online global programs, reach new markets, grow our brand, grow our international. They're all about the top line. That's what our online business tools give you. They're all focused on driving up your business and your exports, your sales, brand awareness. That's for your websites and online marketing. So again, if there's an interest, if you want to learn more about those online global programs, if there's a state that, if you're in one of those states that might have a program for you, note that there's quite a lot of grant funding in some of those states. Each state is different, but that you might be able to benefit from. And then I just wanted to share a little thing. It was just so well encapsulated by one of our clients that I thought I'd just share this as well. So this was last year with COVID and things, and the CEO of this company, of ASI Wheels, said, most of our business is face-to-face. 3/4 of our business is face-to-face meetings, and always has been. COVID's wrecked that. So now can't travel anymore, and therefore we've got to have these websites. And in many ways, we're all desperate to get back to the face-to-face and the international trade shows and going to meet your clients. There's nothing that nothing beats that. But I don't think that the importance of the online world is getting back into the box. And that's why we're very keen to help where we can for the websites and the online marketing. So then on to today's agenda. We split it up into sort of 5. We're going to have a little introduction just on sort of what we call Powerhouse Germany. It's very short, just the main aspects of Germany that strike us when we're doing online tools in the market. Then we're going to build down a bit about sort of a landscape of the online world in Germany. its particularities, what are the main features there. Then drill down into the websites, makes great German websites. How do you connect? How do you get found in Germany? That's the thing. And then obviously the marketing side, how do you communicate with your prospective buyers or suppliers or distributors? What are you going to use this website springboard to communicate and reach out to your prospective buyers? And then finally some takeaways and Q&A. We have reserved some time at the end for Q&A. We think the webinar will take about 45 minutes. We're going to get you back to your office, at your desks, at home, within the hour, certainly. We've got question and time at the end. So we've got 45 minutes. There will be a couple of polls during the webinar as well. We'd love your responses to those. And at the very end, there's like a 30-second survey, which we would appreciate your participation. It's really short. It's just, yes, no, there's a, and but it helps us steer our way forward for that. So without further ado, I should say, questions, please drop them into the chat box. And we've got some curating the questions and going through the questions for later. So without further ado, let's get started then, just to talk a little bit about what we've called Powerhouse Germany. Powerhouse Germany, I mean, it is, any way you slice it, any way you look at Germany, it really is a major economy as an importer, as an exporter, as a producer, as a service economy. It's got it all. So just sort of very big picture stuff. If you compare it to the United States, for example, it's obviously much smaller, but in terms of the size of it, relative to the GDP, relative to the size, it's right up there as well. 82 million versus 326 million people. We'll get onto that in a minute. But look at imports, for example. So Germany's known as an exporter, but the imports are pretty important too. The three basic things that I wanted to point out is Germany is large, it is prosperous, and it is very, very, very business-minded. So a good place to do business in. When I'm talking about large, so it's the single largest population in Europe with 83 million people. It's number one. That's equivalent in the United States, California plus Texas plus Florida. If you combine the three largest US states together, that's the population of Germany. If you look at it in terms of GDP, Germany is fourth in the world. It's 3 times the size of the Russian GDP. It's 1.5 times the size of the Indian GDP, 2.5 times the size of the Canadian GDP. So when we talk about number 4 in the world, it is nevertheless a very strong 4th place that way. So worth having that. And in terms of where they've had, what's happened during the COVID time, obviously they were hard hit by closing down the world as we did in 2020, but the recovery has been pretty strong too. And although first quarter 2021 showed a decline, they actually increased the overall forecast for GDP growth for the full year of 2021 to about 3.5%. Growth, really strengthening through the second half and being pulled by its exporters as well. We talked a bit about size. I think there's something else one should know about the size of Germany. So 83 million people, but in fact, if you look at what's called DACA stands for the Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. It's the and others. There you have more like about 100 million people. And especially if you include little pockets of German speakers, like in Luxembourg, like in the strip around Belgium, Liechtenstein, the poorest, one of the most porous borders in the world is the border between Germany and Poland, where people commute all the time on a daily basis for their jobs. And a lot of that also speaks as a first language is German. But all of those countries around the center of Europe, Croatia, Czech Republic, all of them have a German-speaking population as well. So one single German website can actually reach a very large, substantial number of people, which is sort of interesting in that sense. Another point that we get quite a bit in terms of building the websites is this very decentralized country. These 16 Länder, the states, the states within Germany, and I've highlighted them here in different colors. they all have their very specific characteristics, either in terms of industrial trade clusters, whether that's North Rhine-Westphalia, which is really the center for all the chemicals industry, Bayern, which accounts for more than a third of the German automobile industry, centered around Stuttgart. So each one will have its specificity. There are also regional differences in terms of language, in terms of feel, and ways of doing business. But nevertheless, you can reach all of Germany through one website, and it's it's strong throughout the entire country. I wanted to highlight those numbers again in terms of exports. Exports, 46% of GDP. It's the largest in the world in terms of the percentage of exports. But it's also one of the largest importers in the world, as I mentioned. So, if you're a US or a Canadian or a non-German looking at the German market and saying, is that the right market for me? Yes, it's going to be competitive, but there is still a lot of demand there, and it's a worthwhile market to go into. I just wanted to point out as well that one thinks of Germany very much as the big manufacturers, the car companies, the aeronautic companies that are there. But in fact, if you look, there's, it does span a lot of different brands and industry sectors, from manufacturing to retail, to banking, to computers with SAP, with SAP, to hard discount like Metro. So there's it's a very broad brush economy. It's not just the steel makers. And I guess what we find with our clients really is, very often their next biggest supplier, their biggest competitor, their next biggest prospective buyer is German. So, if you're looking through it and you say, gosh, we're being supplied by a German company, our big competitor is a German company. So, they are really global players in that sense. I guess we all know about the German Mittelstand, the middle core of Germany. This refers to Germany's strong, small, medium-sized companies. These are usually privately held, family-owned. They are really strong in what they do. They're very focused like that. And from their very start and kickoff, they are export-orientated. The Mittelstand accounts for 50% of the German economy, of the German GDP size. As I said from the very beginning, they are very orientated towards exporting. That is in their DNA. They invest huge amounts into R&D. It's not unlike, it's not unusual to find money at 10% into R&D. In terms of finding them as partners, they're cautious. It takes a long time. But once you have them on board, once they become a client of yours or a supplier or a distributor or whatever it is, a partner, they remain faithful. They invest in the partnership. So they do take time, but there's a very loyal partnership that can be established there. So that's something. And a couple of sort of the big characteristics I've listed there on the right-hand side of your screen. So those are sort of some of the big aspects, again, the big sort of broad brush things that we wanted to highlight before launching into the online site itself. And before I turn over to, before I talk a little bit more about why exporters need German websites, let me launch a quick poll and see how y'all are here. Are you already doing business in Germany? If so, are you online only, online with a local market partner? And local market partner is anything from a subsidiary, an agent, a distributor, a company you've bought, a company you're starting, whatever that is. Or are you still thinking about it? There's a few of you who are online only, and I'm very well done, you guys. The vast majority are with a local partner, which we quite understand. That's the usual way of going into markets is via a local partner, whether that's a distributor or an agent or whatever. Thank you very much for jumping in on that poll and replying so enthusiastically on that. As I said, the majority of you with a local partner, but there are a little handful of you online only, which is great. I'm going to close that poll. And now let's talk a little bit now about why we think you as an exporter would benefit from German websites, and what that means for German websites or Germany Online. Joelle, do you want to talk about that?
That's great. Thank you, Susanna. Yeah, absolutely. So before we dive into websites and digital marketing for German, I thought it was worth stopping a moment to think, just really to see how pervasive the internet has become. So over the next few slides, I just wanted to share with you some stats. So I apologize if it's quite number heavy, but I just wanted to really outline, for example, we know that out of the total world population of just over 7.7 billion now, I believe, over 5 billion are regularly on the internet. So if you ever think of your life as a non-stop smartphone, email, social media, apps, browsing, well, so is everyone else. And Germany is no exception. As we can see here, 94% of the German population is on the internet. So now, Hootsuite and We Are Social, which are the two organizations that compile these global stats every year, and we say a very big thank you to them for it. They count a person on the internet only as someone that actually uses the internet regularly. So you have, for example, a unique email address or are active on social media. So 94% of the population is really saying something about internet penetration rates. And this is one of the highest in the world, actually. And hand in hand with that is really here the 135% penetration rate of what they call mobile subscriptions. So basically, we can see, smartphone, tablets. In Germany, there are many people who have more than one device. So, when you think about cross-device and how much time you spend on it, think about this, 135% mobile connections. And diving a little bit more in terms of daily time spent on media, there are two little facts that I just wanted to draw your attention on when looking at Germany Online in specifics. So again, I apologize again for all of these pie charts and stats, but this is something we spend a lot of time analyzing as we work out the best strategy for our clients. And we just want to share this with you today, as we feel is an excellent starting point. So the first little fact here is that despite 94% of the people in Germany are going online all the time, just under 3/4 of them are actually on social media. And this is low by international standards, and we'll drill down into this a little bit later. But the other feature that I wanted to highlight goes hand in hand with that. So namely the relatively low amount of time spent on the internet. I would say but 5 hours. It sounds a lot, but comparing to the average of 6 hours across Europe and nearly 7 hours in the US, and the other is 7 hours a day on media. So I can see everyone putting the phone down, pretending that you don't spend that much time. I'm sure I am guilty of that. But then the question is, so what about the Germans? Is it worth having a German website or a social media strategy to help your exports? The answer from our experience and what we've seen with our clients is a clear and resounding yes. First, as we saw, they're all online. So 94% is a very big number. And what we found is that while the average time spent in social media is a little less than other markets, the Germans take it very seriously. So they will spend less time tweeting and posting selfies and more time actually reading reviews, looking carefully at companies, looking at your website. So rest assured, your business links, your clients, your prospects are all online and on social media. Again, we'll go through this a little bit more in detail later. But right now, I just wanted to highlight a couple of points that will then bring into more context later on today. And again, just to share something a little bit more specific on social media, you can see how out of that 94% of internet users we mentioned, only, and again, I use the quotes, 66 millions are active social media users, which is roughly just under 78% of the population. And this might seem high, but again, believe it or not, is below international averages. But what is specific to German users on social media is how they engage with it. As I mentioned, they might spend less time posting or less time, mindlessly scrolling through the Facebook feed. Again, something that I am very guilty of. But once they go through the post, they read your content. So once you're on social media, really make sure that every interaction counts. You will not run a Facebook campaign and receive tons of likes and share, but if you get a comment, a click, or a visit to your website, you know that that's high quality engagement from the start. Last thing I wanted to highlight before we move on to, again, websites and marketing is, again, here, I apologize for the dense slides. I just wanted to try and fit the whole of German e-commerce on one slide. But the good news is that we have a handout for you. So there is the full infographic that you should be able to download from your options bar at the side. So there is a little bit more information on e-commerce there, or you can find it for free on our website as well. But I just wanted to highlight just a couple of things. And the first one is the size of e-commerce in Germany. It's a very strong economy combined with, as Susanna mentioned, a pro-technology culture, which really results in one of the highest growing EU commerce rates. So today, I think latest figure is about just over 72 billion and is the second in the EU after the UK. But it's growing at a really, really, really fast pace. So is expected to outpace the UK within the next few years. So cross-border e-commerce in Germany, is the third active country worldwide, both as import and export in e-commerce. And German online shoppers buy cross-borders more frequently from countries like the US and the UK than maybe you see other European countries do. Interestingly, also, we have PayPal being one of the most popular online payment methods in Germany, with 39% of Germans preferring to pay using online payment systems such as PayPal. And there are other maybe less known but very popular in Germany online payment providers such as Sofortüberweisung, Click and Buy, GiroPay, and these are all very valid and recognized payment methods in the country. So if you are looking at e-commerce, you've got options. Make sure that you do your research before getting started.
Great. Thank you very much, Joelle, for that sort of big brushstroke landscape view of the online world in Germany, the online environment. So now we're going to drill down a little bit more into talking about websites in Germany. What are they? How do they have to be constructed? What are they? What's different about them? Why can't I just use my US website? All those things. So one of the first things we want to say about a great German website is that it's in German. So it's obviously going to be in German. A German person, even if they do a lot of cross-border e-commerce, they're going to search for things. The market's big enough. They're not going to search in other languages. They're going to search in German. I know it sounds an obvious thing, but you'd be surprised. The couple of things that are worth noting, though, when you do have German. The first is, the length of the words, and because Germans like to compound words together. And I've given you a funny example there on the bottom of companies that provide mass communication services all in one word. So that's quite a long one. So having that, and then the fact that the language can be longer as well means that sometimes your website can be a little bit different in terms of the look, because your design might get affected by the longer words. So it's roughly can be 20 to 30% longer in terms of your content in Germany than it is in your US or UK website. Note as well that the Germans they're pretty sort of pragmatic about the language. They're less sort of stuck up about than, say, the French. They're much more sort of plastic about it. They integrate new words, but they'll often use English words in a different way than you're used to. One of the best examples I can give you is the word for a mobile phone. So a mobile phone in German is called a handy. Handy. It's very handy, but it's the handy is your mobile phone. So there are very specific English words that are used. Be careful. This is sort of a false friend, as the Germans would say. So be careful about how you use English words in German. They might not be exactly what you're thinking as well. German websites tend to be a little bit more formal than you're probably used to as well. Remember that there's also there's two ways of saying you. There's a formal and an informal, the du and the sie in German. Just like in French, the tu and the vous. In German, you have the du and the sie. And it'll be more formal. And generally speaking, business in Germany will perhaps be a little bit more formal than you might be used to. I'll get onto content in a moment. But just a last thing just about your websites is beware of your metadata, because the words are longer, remember that metadata should be something like about 150 characters, 50, 60 characters maybe. So you're quickly going to expand that in your metadata, given the length of some of the words. So, but Germans are very used to abbreviating things, and they are very happy to abbreviate things. So that's the way to get around that. The other thing about German and content and the German language is that there's quite a lot of regional differences. And depending on sort of where you want to focus a bit more, I mean, there can be real differences in your keywords. This is just one that, you know, it's getting hot in summer, so I was thinking of ice cream. So, you know, if you're in Germany, then you really need to use the word Eistüte. For an ice cream. You know, if you're in Austria, then you might want to think about Steinzell or something like that. So just in terms of the right keywords. Now, most of the language, 90–95% of the language is going to be the same. It's the keywords that matter. And those are that's, you know, the really important part for your SEO, but in terms of any kind of Google ads or any kind of marketing you're doing, making sure the keywords are correct for the market you're looking for. As I said, there can be quite a lot of regional variation, north and south, and then Austria, Switzerland, and Germany as well. Just to say as well, this is something that you probably all know already. Websites are always localized. So why do the keywords matter? It matters because the search engines, for example, Google, which has a 95% market share in Germany, is localized. They say they take the searcher's point of view. So if the Austrian goes on to Google and says, "Where's my ice cream?" they're going to give them the Austrian equivalent of that word rather than the German. You know, obviously it's in German. Obviously the keywords are different. There's a lot that goes into localizing a website, and we've done webinars on this in the past. If you want to drill down into that, on one slide here are the 10 criteria that we use for localizing a website. You'll note that language translation is one of them. Registered domain name, and the domain name for Germany is .de, is just as important. It tells Google where you're going. Regulatory requirements is incredibly important too, especially for Germany. We'll get onto that. There's a neat little trick if you want to know, is my website localized for that market? Is it fit for purpose? If I build a German website, am I actually getting into Germany? And you can look at this in terms of the back end of your website and look at its performance. And here we have just a screenshot of a company that where we work for them and built a German website and German marketing for them. And if you can see this, so out of 19,000 visits, what was that? 84% of those visits came from Germany. And then the next ones are sort of Austria. If you include Austria, Switzerland, and Luxembourg, we're up at 95%. So so this website is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that's a neat way of knowing if your website is working the way you want it to work. You build a German website, you've got to have, you know, at least, you know, those kind of numbers to you know, at least 80%, in this case 95%, coming from that German-speaking area. The picture on the right just shows you whereabouts it's coming in Germany, and this one, obviously, North Rhine-Westphalia seems to be very, and Baden-Württemberg seems to be particularly keen on this company. So that's a neat little trick. I want to show you some examples of websites as well. So you know, when you're transforming your website from a US website into a German website, you want it to still have a lot of resemblance, so that people, you know, the brand is the same. Many of the images can be very, very similar or slightly tweaked only. It's really the back end of the website, the hosting, the compliance, the domain names, as well as obviously the keywords and the optimization that changes, so that there's a real consistency with the brand and such, and the feel of the website for that. And if you have any interest in going further and looking at some of these case studies, they're all on our website, and they're little videos which talk about you know, from the company's point of view from that. And again, these are these online global programs that we run. Another example here is a company we did, China, they went to China, Spain, and then Germany. And again, the German one was really built for the German market in particular. Just one little thing, I haven't done a screenshot very well, but you can see just how long the sentence is, certainly compared to the Chinese, of the German tagline on this company for that. And again, just noting that you have in each case to put the flags up so that, a German, for example, if he's going to go on your website, he's going to find it in German, in Germany. He's then going to spend some time on your website if he's interested in you as a company. And he'll go back to your US website, check you out, then toggle back into Germany to find out more. And so there'll be a lot of sort of circling back you'll find as well. And then just the last example, this is just a company for e-commerce things. And again, consistency with brand, but a very much functioning in Germany website for that. Let's talk a little bit about content for Germany. So German content can be a little bit different from your American content. The Germans like a lot of content. They like strong, relevant content. They're the people in the world who actually read your terms and conditions. They will, they'll ask for more information. They'll want to see downloads of your spec sheets and that sort of thing. The trick really is to make sure that you have enough content there without flooding the website with content without sort of overburdening it. So making sure that it's correct. It is really, really important to have the high quality. Grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, vocabulary mistakes are not easily forgiven on the German side. And then obviously, localizing your content. We'll get on to content and show you some examples later in terms of the marketing as well. Great German websites are also digitally compliant. And again, the Germans kind of lead the way in terms of compliancy. They have something, they have a cookie policy, they have a privacy policy. They have something called impressum. Impressum really means authorship. So who takes accountability of this website? Whose website is this? And that's the impressum. Who's, so that's you as a company. You have to put your company details in, your EIN number, for example. All that has to have, you have to have a separate section, cookie, privacy, and impressum, authorship. And then as of May 2018, the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which the Germans see as very strong as well. So if you have a website which is not compliant in terms of GDPR, there's even a little yellow warning signal that pops up in Google Germany that says this is not secure, and that's not something that you really want to associate with your brand of your company. A question we often get: does GDPR apply to me? I'm a U.S. company. Well, if you're moving data around, for example, your leads out of Germany onto your U.S. website, then yes, it applies to you. So the point about GDPR is it does apply to you. It's if you're processing any kind of personal data, it does apply to you if you're a non-European company. And the Germans take this very seriously indeed. So those are the big core factors about websites in Germany. They are in German. They are totally localized for the German market with a .de or a subdomain name for Germany. They're strong content, which is high quality content, and they are digitally compliant. We'll get some more examples later with the online marketing. But before I turn back to Joelle, I wanted to ask you another poll. So just to ask you all, if you'd like to learn more about those localized websites, about German localized websites, what that means, how to localize the German websites, if you're interested in the online global programs or anything like that, let us know, and we could, we could circle back to you or send you some emails or some information or some blogs or whatever to let you know about that. Again, thank you very much. A lot. Ooh, you're very reactive. It's lovely. Thank you. We appreciate that very much. There's a lot of you who are really interested in learning more about the German localized websites and the online global programs. So we will be circling back to you in due course with email responses for that. Right, I'm going to close this poll. If my mouse will work, I'll close the poll. and turn over back to Joelle to talk a little bit about online marketing for German prospects.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susanna. Perfect. So going straight into online marketing, I just wanted to go back into the social media world. I know that is something that we talked about keywords, we talked about website, but what other content is out there? What is your strategy looking like? So we've said earlier, 94% of Germans are online, but we've also said that less than 3/4 actually use social media. So generally, social media usage in Germany is lower than most other European countries. And we've seen that Germany has actually been quite cautious in adopting new social media platforms. So you'll see here at the top, no big surprises. You've got WhatsApp and YouTube, and then Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, fairly the usual suspects if you want. But this is growing consistently, and really social media should be part of any exporter strategy. So Facebook, as I mentioned, just after YouTube, is still the #1 social media platform by a fairly long reach. And roughly 30% of all Germans use Facebook at least once per week, most of them daily. And the good thing is that Facebook is no longer just seen as a social communication app, but it's actually seen as a method of researching. They will engage with your company, they will see what kind of content you share, they will go and check out your page. So, it really needs to think about what you publish, how you publish it, and what your social media profiles all consistently look like for the German audiences. So there are some pretty big differences when you want to read Germans compared to maybe the US or a UK audience. For example, German businesses tend to use Google+, although that is now moving and fading away. So again, they're moving into more so-called mainstream in the US social media platforms. So you'll see, for example, Twitter, on the other hand, is not a very strong platform in Germany as it is in the US. And this could really be linked to the number of characters compared to the length of some of the German words. So Facebook and Instagram give you much more freedom about how long your messaging can be. Twitter is quite limiting. And if you have a word that is 150 characters long on its own, the messaging is always a bit tricky to fit. So that could be what kind of hindered Twitter taking off in Germany. Just because of more of a technicality than everything else. But we know from experience that Germans like quite a lot of content. So they're not too responsive to something short and snappy, but rather something that has more substance, provides the initial information, or they're on the same platform, and at that point they'll decide whether they want to engage with it, and they're ready to go and either reach out to you on a comment or go back to your website and continue the research. There is a platform in Germany called Xing, which is a little bit like LinkedIn, but specific to Germany. So this is also a great place to find employees, but also distributors, and to be in touch with industry-specific forums, for example. On the chart, you can see Xing is just ahead of LinkedIn in terms of usage, but they're both really growing for different reasons at the same time. So that's a very interesting ecosystem there. So I've highlighted on this slide a few characteristics here: cautious, discreet, compliance aware, as Susanna was just talking about, GDPR, are all of the same feature that you find on how Germans use websites. This really applies to social media and any kind of internet research. So we've already talked about the different point of view and how well they will look through your website. But it's important to note that they are much more cautious and take your content seriously. So your media strategy has to reflect this. And you can really see this, as I mentioned very briefly earlier, on how they respond to social media. They would actually read your content. They wouldn't just drop a like and continue. If you get an interaction, it means that they've really engaged, and they've probably already been on your website and they're checking you out again on social media. Perfect. So I've got a few examples and some case studies I wanted to share with you. But before, I just wanted to take a moment to step back and look at a buyer persona. So as many of you might have heard the term, a buyer persona is a fictional representation of your ideal customer, which is based on real data on your existing customers as well as some market research. But I just wanted to highlight this again because it's important to think about what your international buyer persona could look like. And there are a few questions that you should ask yourself before you go and start, building your marketing strategy for the German market. Are there multiple buyer personas for my export markets? How do they find me? What do they care about? How do they research on the internet? And here I just wanted to provide a couple of examples from L'Oreal, who are frequently cited for how spot on they are with their international marketing strategy. So here we have L'Oreal USA, group of women, top floor of a glass building, loads of empowerment, in charge, diverse group of women. And then if we look at Mexico, here we have a look of a very different office environment. It's a little bit more relaxed, one that includes both men and women making decisions, collaborating together. And I find it interesting because compared to the US and even other examples, and even what we can see in Germany, for example, this is very collaborative, is a little bit more relaxed. But again, if you look at the imagery, it really reflects what the market would expect to see, what they could reflect themselves into. And the third example here, indeed, L'Oreal Germany, also looks pretty different from the other two, but you can see here the imagery is much more, if you pass me the term, European looking, strong women in the imagery, easy for the German customers to relate to and to find themselves as part of that brand in their target market. It feels native, it feels natural for them. This is just a quick slide to say that each buyer persona is clearly different, and the messaging should be respectful of that when you build your marketing strategy for your international buyer persona, in this case for Germany. Perfect. Just diving into a couple of examples here, might sound like a bit of an obvious choice, but I thought we could start from Facebook, as this is surely the one of the first platforms that comes to mind, and that's also true in Germany. So Facebook, as we've seen just after YouTube, is the largest social media platform for the German market. And this applies, as I've mentioned, to both a customer base, but also B2B environment. As Susanna mentioned, in relation to websites, German users really value content. So don't be afraid of writing long description. Don't be afraid of giving information. If they're interested, they will read it. And the fact that you've provided that will be a very solid starting point for them to go and continue the research on your localized website. So when creating a social media calendar, I would always recommend it's worth focusing on the quality of the messaging rather than the frequency and posting maybe every day or twice a day. So once you achieve this, the holy grail interaction with your posts or with your ads, or even with your page, if someone gives you a page like, make sure that you engage with your German users, answer their comment, respond to their direct messages, get them engaged. You got them to that point, make sure that you nurture that relationship. The second and the other platform I just wanted to highlight here is another huge social media platform in Germany, and this is Instagram. With over 37 million users, which makes over 45% of the entire population, Germany has more or less the same amount of women and men using Instagram, whereby people in the age between 25 and 34 make the larger user group. We can see on Instagram, they have the highest engagement rate of all social media platforms. And Instagram is generally a really great platform when it comes to engagement because, you can really see you've got different ways of showcasing your content. If you have strong imagery, again, don't be afraid of showing a slightly longer video. If you can, you have your stories, but you also have your reels. So use all of the different options that Instagram provides because, again, German users, your German Instagram users, will engage with your content, and if they get to follow your page, then as Susanna mentioned, they're loyal, they will stay, and they will engage with further organic content you post. Just a quick note, Instagram is not only a platform to create brand awareness or engagement. We found that with the right posts and ads, it can also increase purchases. We've seen from research that 48% of all Instagram users said they made a purchase because of a brand's video or story they watched on Instagram on this platform. So if you're looking at e-commerce, if you're looking at launching on Instagram, it really should be a part of your media planning for the German market. The third example here I have is slightly different, but again, we'll go back to social media, but it's all about targeting your buyer persona. So here's how your buyer persona can also guide your content creation. And here we've got an example for women products who have a very, very specific target persona. So we know here we want to drive top funnel traffic with a blog piece and build pixel audience for our persona, who are not only teachers but art teachers for primary and secondary schools. So you see, it can be very, very specific. And here we know that Easter is a big time of the month. It's very important for our German audience. So we've really used some strong imagery, localized our blog content for the German market, and promoted that on social media. And we had some fantastic responses, both on the platform, but also in terms of organic traffic using those right keywords, as Susanna mentioned earlier. So again, make sure that you incorporate everything in your content, in your social media, your market strategy, and it will pay off in the long term. Again, using an example of a campaign that we've been running for one of our clients here. They are targeting two markets, two very different markets, Mexico and Germany. And here we're using a Facebook campaign as an example. And what I wanted to show you here is how important it is to fully understand your buyer persona, but also what the journey looks like and how they engage with your social media in each of your target markets. So here, as I mentioned, we were promoting the same content, which was a blog post with similar imagery and messaging, although of course we kept it localized and really staying relevant to our local audiences across the two markets. But if we look at the post results here, for example, for Germany, we had over 1,200 engagement, and we were ecstatic with it. But then we turned over and looked at Mexico engagement, 20,000 and counting. Wow. So if we stopped our analysis at this, we could potentially infer that our campaign in Mexico worked much better and had a lot more engagement than in Germany, right? Not always, not necessarily. So as I mentioned, understanding how your buyer persona interact will also inform how you analyze your data. So once you look at the same company, same post, but here we're looking, for example, at how they engage once they get to the website. So we can see here the total session and users, or the blue and red, for Mexico are much, much higher than what we're able to achieve in Germany. But then if we start looking at the conversions or the sales or people asking for more information and engaging with the product, the yellow and the greens, we can see that really the difference is not that drastic anymore. And this just shows how we know that for our Mexican audience, we need to achieve much, much higher level of that top funnel engagement and interaction, apologies, to get to those conversions. Whereas for our German market, once they make the step to engage with us, we know that they've already, quite keen, and they've already done the research, and they move on to making a purchase or requesting more information a lot quicker than they would in other markets. Perfect. A little bit more data, but before I hand over back to Susanna, also conscious of time we've kept you. I just wanted to make sure, again, that I iterate this. It's not because we're talking about social media that, is something that you can just go and post and hope for the best. A strong social media, as well as any other marketing strategy, really required to be aligned with the overall business goals, with the overall business strategies, and having some social media goals, but also some metrics to track will give it a starting point to then be able to measure success and decide what is working, what is not working, and what you need to change. So here again, just within the social media sphere, as I didn't want to add more elements at this stage, an example how within a singular platform, again, Facebook for this, you can already tailor your activities, your goals, and what metric you're tracking, depending on your business objectives. So work out, decide what you want to achieve, and everything else will follow. But make sure that you track, you learn, and you optimize.
Joelle, thank you very much for that. Before we just round up and have some questions, I'm just going to launch a last little poll, because I like these polls. And you seem to be all reacting so well to them, so I thought another one. So in this sense, would you like to learn more about the online marketing side for Germany or for other markets, and also about the online global programs? If so, let us know. We'll send you an email with some information, or ask what it is you're looking for in particular. And again, thank you very much for that. This is a really, really great audience today. Maybe the sun's shining where you are. You're all very participating. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to close that poll. We have quite a few questions that have come in. I realize it's 45 minutes, so we'll be fast on this and get to the questions. Just some quick sort of rounding, just summarizing everything, just in a few quick words. The first is basically that Germany is a very, very strong online environment. With 83 million people, 94% of the population using the internet for 5 hours a day. This is a very strong, very good internet environment in which to use online tools to grow your business. A couple of the major points we would say in terms of the best practices for online in Germany: have a localized German website. That acts as your springboard, as a local platform in which to engage with your audience. Know your audience, know your buyer persona, know how they act, where they're acting, and their reaction. Choose the right social media platform for your buyer persona. Invest in outstanding quality content, and then be digitally mindful and digitally compliant. Those are the main things. Just to remind you again about what is localization, these 10 criteria that I had before, and also just to sort of reiterate, why we think it's so important. The world is online. We're finally coming out of this pandemic. Use online tools to get the head start, to engage with your global prospective buyers and drive your business forward. Get found, be understood, do business, get online, use online tools. And then finally, just remember, we have these online global programs in several US states. There are grants available for some of them too, which is very attractive for that. So, and then there's a lot of resources out there that can help you. We have a ton of resources on our website, which is ibt.onl, where you go into resources page, and there's webinars and white papers and infographics and all kinds of things. If you want to drill down and figure out the resources we have, please feel free. And we've highlighted 2 others that we use a lot, Hootsuite, where all these stats come from, and then obviously good old HubSpot as well. So questions, there's a couple. I'm going to jump right in. Joelle, there's actually 2 questions about LinkedIn. You mentioned Zing, and you did mention LinkedIn, but which should you choose? Should you do Zing or LinkedIn? Is LinkedIn worth it in Germany?
That is a very good question, and the short answer is yes. It is definitely worth it, especially if you already got an established LinkedIn presence and you just want to enter the new market. Definitely leverage a platform. Zing is also a very interesting option in the German market. As I mentioned, they're both growing alongside each other, and one is becoming a little bit more networking, the other is becoming a little bit more recruitment savvy, but at the same time, they're becoming more and more familiar and more similar. So if you have the option, I would say if you're familiar with it, start from LinkedIn and then expand into Zing once you're a little bit more established. Don't spread yourself too thinly. If LinkedIn you're familiar with, just go with that one. You'll get some good results.
Okay. Link to that, sorry, that's a bad pun. Associated with that question, on LinkedIn, can I target specific German buyer personas?
The answer is twofold. If you are looking to do some paid marketing on LinkedIn, absolutely. They have a fantastic and super comprehensive targeting optimizations these days, where you can target by region, by country, by industry, by job title. If you're looking to do organic marketing, so organic posting or blogging, it becomes a little bit trickier because you will need to have, I believe these days, at least 300 followers from that specific, from Germany or from a specific region if you want to drill down a little bit lower. So if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, then absolutely. Otherwise, it might take a little bit of time to build that organic audience before you can do so.
Okay. Another question for you, Joelle, on marketing. One question on marketing. We have a German rep and a German distributor. Can they give us content for the marketing?
Absolutely. If I think any marketing you do in the region will just support them and support their efforts as well. They are close to your buyer persona. They are close to the market. They speak with them every day. If they have some content, make the most of it.
Okay. And then another one on your side. reviewing your keywords. How often do I have to review my keywords for a German website?
I'd say ideally once a quarter. Keep an eye on the competitiveness, especially if you're tracking any specific one you want to rank for. Minimum once every 6 months, because things these days change really, really quickly. You want to make sure that you stay on top of it, especially if you're doing paid marketing, because that, you don't want to spend money for something that doesn't work anymore.
Okay, I think there are two questions. There's a couple of questions on e-commerce. There's one that's come in also about content and e-commerce. That if in the US, for example, you could have the content on your e-commerce website could have a lot of imagery, strong imagery, videos, and so on. Do we just have to have written content for Germany? And when we're talking about content, we are also mentioning, we're also including videos and the content in its widest form. Germans do watch videos. Yes, of course they do. They do want strong imagery. Our point is just that it's really got to be, just right. So it'll be really good quality, and they do want more information than, say, other website, other environments. If you compare the Mexico to the Germany, as we did earlier, we'll find that the Mexicans engage very, very quickly with videos, and very quickly with an imagery. The Germans really do read your content. They'll read your FAQs, they'll read your blogs. But they'll also they'll also want very strong imagery, and they'll want strong videos as well. Another question about domain names. There's no particular restriction on the .de. There is a restriction on .eu, which is a European-wide domain name that people use. But if you do have an issue with the domain name, which is a yourcompany.de at the top level, you could always do a subdomain. That looks also very, very well. A /de. We said we'd be 45 minutes. There's a whole bunch of other questions that come in. I think what we'll do is round it up now. Thank you all very, very much, and we will answer your questions specifically via email the next couple of days when we'll go through all the questions that have come in and answer them by email. And then anyone who has to be contacted, we will circle back to you by email as well in due course. I want to thank Joelle for joining me today on this webinar and talking and sharing our experiences online in Germany. Thank you all for attending, for being such a responsive and great audience. And we will, as I said, circle back with you and give you more. Thank you all. Thank you. Well done. And stay safe. Look forward to seeing you all face to face soon. Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care.